Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into something genuinely fascinating. We are going to break down a brilliant ancient text that actually diagnoses the human condition exactly like a comprehensive medical manual. We're looking at insights from volume 95 of the Yoga-Cara Bhumi Sastra. Now, you might think an ancient philosophical treatise would be, purely abstract, but what we're about to see is a highly systematic, profoundly relatable breakdown of human psychology. It treats our mental suffering not as some mysterious curse, but as a quantifiable illness with very specific pathogens, symptoms, and most importantly, a prescribed cure. Okay, let's set the stage for this foundational concept. This text carries immense historical and philosophical weight. Attributed to Maitreya Bodhisattva and painstakingly translated by the legendary monk Xuanzang, this isn't just a casual collection of thoughts. It's a rigorous, structured mapping of human consciousness. Xuanzang literally traveled across continents just to bring this precise psychological framework back to China. So we're gearing up for a deep dive that has been preserving mental clarity for centuries. Here's our treatment plan for today. First, we'll diagnose the mind's illness. Then, we'll look at arrogance and our 108 desires. Third, we'll explore the four truths as our ultimate medicine, followed by the practices of calm, insight, and mindfulness. And finally, we'll wrap up with how to overcome four great obstacles.
All right, step one, diagnosing the mind's illness. So reality basically splits into two distinct paths here. The text points out that our failure to extinguish mental suffering, what it calls our leaks or afflictions, stems directly from an irrational or improper framing of our thoughts. When we hear bad advice or just fail to observe the world objectively, we fall into improper attention. We look at things that are constantly changing and we think, oh, that's permanent. We look at pain and somehow expect joy. This fundamental misinterpretation of reality, that is patient zero for our mental illness. Moving right along to step 2, arrogance and our 108 desires.
Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that our attachment to the self and what belongs to the self creates the perfect breeding ground for this illness. Because we fail to see the impermanence of our bodies and minds, we construct this super rigid idea of I and mine. We claim complete ownership over our thoughts, our possessions, our bodies. This false perception of a permanent identity is basically to anchor holding all our other mental afflictions in place. Without this illusion, the pathogens literally have nothing to attach to. And from this false self-view, we get 5, honestly, very relatable forms of arrogance, especially as our bodies age and change. Think about just looking in a mirror. We suffer because we fall into these traps. We arrogantly believe, I am exactly as before. When we're healthy, we think, I'm beautiful and strong. Conversely, we might despair and think, I am not beautiful, or we panic thinking, I'm changing and decaying. And here's the kicker. Even negative self-judgments are forms of arrogance. Why? Because they are entirely obsessed with a static, false sense of self. Which brings us to a staggering number, 108 kinds of desires that multiply from these arrogant attachments. And no, this isn't just a random number, it is a precise calculation. Take the ways we interact with the world. Internally, through our senses, externally, through objects, across different states of being. That gives us 36 types of desires. Now multiply those across the past, the present, and the future. 36 times 3 equals exactly 108. Our mind is systematically manufacturing craving across literally every dimension of time and space. Notice how this builds into a really vivid medical metaphor of visual impairment to map out our mental obscuration. It says if you're deeply caught in the realm of desire, you are compared to someone who is totally blind. You are completely in the dark regarding reality. Now, advancing to the realm of form is like having your eyes closed. There is some light, but you're still largely ignorant. And even at the highest, most refined formless realms, you still have cataracts. Your vision is distorted by subtle illusions. True health means clearing the vision entirely.
All right, part 3, the 4 truths as our ultimate medicine.
The famous 4 noble truths actually map perfectly to a medical treatment plan. The truth of suffering? That's the illness itself. The truth of accumulation, our desires and karma, is the pathogen causing the illness. The truth of cessation is the state of total health when the disease is cured. And the truth of the path is the actual medicine you must take to get better. It's a highly structured, incredibly logical progression from acknowledging the pain to actively curing it, with the Buddha acting as the unsurpassed good doctor, pulling out the poisoned arrow of desire. But you don't just take this medicine all at once. The administration happens in phases, known as the 3 turns of the Dharma wheel, showing the chronological progression of a practitioner. First, you just understand the diagnosis. You see the truths. Second, you know what action you need to take. You realize you have to abandon the cause and practice the path. Finally, the 3rd turn is the state of the master, where you have completely accomplished the work and cured the mind.
Next up, part 4, calm, insight, and mindfulness.
Mindfulness of the body is essentially the absolute anchor for our recovery. Because our minds love to wander into the past and future, generating those 108 desires we talked about, we have to ground our thoughts into present physical reality. By observing the physical elements, seeing the body simply as an amalgamation of basic parts rather than a solid, permanent self, we actively begin to break down the arrogant illusion that caused the illness in the first place.
From that foundation, the treatment branches into 2 essential paired practices: calm abiding, known as Ji, and insight, known as Guan. Think of them as the 2 wings of a bird. Calm abiding is about quieting the mind, building resilience, and developing pure concentration. But a quiet mind isn't enough on its own. You have to pair it with insight, using that sharp, quiet mind to analytically dissect reality, observing impermanence and breaking down false beliefs. You literally need both: the stillness to hold the scalpel and the wisdom to know exactly where to cut. Finally, part 5, overcoming 4 great obstacles. Ask yourself how often you fall into one of these 4 psychological traps when you're trying to improve your own mental clarity. The first obstacle is disbelief, doubting that the medicine actually works. The second is arrogance, thinking you already know enough and don't really need the treatment. The third is procrastination, or waiting for a better time, telling yourself you'll start meditating or improving yourself tomorrow or next year. And the fourth is heedlessness, just letting your mind wander into frivolous, careless thoughts that completely undo your progress. To combat our arrogance, that sneaky feeling that we've figured it all out, the text uses this incredible imagery. True understanding of reality is like an archer shooting an arrow from a massive distance and having it perfectly split the notch of a previous arrow right in midair. It reminds us just how extraordinarily difficult and precious true, unclouded insight actually is. It demands profound respect and rigorous practice, not just some casual assumption. And to cure the third obstacle, procrastination, it brings up the famous blind turtle metaphor. Imagine a vast ocean with a single piece of wood floating on the surface with one hole in it. Now imagine a blind turtle at the very bottom of the ocean that surfaces exactly once every 100 years. What are the mathematical odds of that blind turtle surfacing and putting its head perfectly through that floating wooden yoke? Gaining a human life with the capacity to understand this medicine is just as rare. This is meant to violently shake us out of our procrastination. So, we'll leave you with this final thought. The cycle of existence is like a spinning, 5-spoked wheel. We are constantly in motion, continuously distracted by our proper and improper thoughts, our arrogance, and our 108 desires. But right now, you have a rare moment of clarity. Your psychological diagnosis is clear. The medicine, the path of mindfulness, calm, and insight is right in your hands. So, knowing how fleeting and incredibly rare this opportunity is, when will you begin the treatment?